Good morning, students. Today we will start with a new chapter, and that is the name of your book, supplementary reader also, Footprints Without Feet. This article focuses on footprints without feet summary. The author of the story is Herbert George Wells. This is an interesting story about a scientist named Griffin and his rare formula of invisibility. Invisibility means which cannot be seen. He developed a drug which made his body invisible, but he can be only felt physically. So these type of people, what do? Then he misuses his power to steal money, clothes and food. He found it difficult to stay in London with such power, so decides to move us to a small village, Iping. In the village, people were skeptical about him and looked at him strangely. A series of incidences happened in the inn where he stayed. As his money exhausted, he again started stealing it from people and hit the owners of the inn when they suspected him. But lastly, he has to reveal his identity to the people, but nobody catches him as he becomes invisible. So this is the story, Footprints Without Feet. The question is, can a man become invisible? This is the story of a scientist who discovers how to make oneself invisible. These type of people, they don't do any positive things. They all start doing. They misuse their power, and this is what the author also did. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh, muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. They saw the footprints of the bare feet, but there was no one. What was barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? Because they could see only the footprints, they couldn't see the man. As they gazed means to look. A remarkable sight met their eyes. Remarkable means a wonderful sight met their eyes. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. So George was walking, but nobody could see him because he was invisible. Further footprints followed one after another, descending the steps and progressing down the street. The footsteps they could see were coming down from the descending means to, this is the word descending, to come down the steps, and progressing means moving forward down the street. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter and at last disappeared altogether. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Transparent means invisible. Bewildered means shocked, amused. They were confused because they could see only the footprints and not the man. Griffin, the scientist, had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. If you could touch his body, it was very solid, but you cannot see him. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. Lawless person means he did not follow any rules and regulations. He always broke the law. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Eject means to throw him out of his house. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. Because he was trying to throw him out of the house, he set fire to his house. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer. Means a person who does not have a house. Without clothes, without money, because if he wore clothes, he could be seen, and his body became transparent only when he was naked. Thus it was that he became a homeless wanderer, without clothes, without money, and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. So, anybody who wanted to know about him could see only his footprints. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London. We've read this in the first two paragraphs, but his adventures were by no means over. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. Bad time of the year means it was very cold there, and he was walking without clothes. It was midwinter, the air was bitterly cold, and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. So, to do this, to get warmth, he used to slid inside some hotel or restaurants to get himself warm up. Closing time arrived, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself, fitted himself out with warm clothes, soon with shoes and overcoat and a wide brimmed hat. He became a fully dressed and visible person. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. So this is what he was doing, stealing all the things from the shops to make himself warm. He stole the clothes, the coat and the hat to quench his hunger. He ate cold meat and coffee, and to sleep he went into the shop with the quilts and he slept under the pile of quilts. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. As he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. When he saw, okay, we'll do till here. We'll continue day after tomorrow, children. So, I hope you have understood how Griffin made himself invisible, and he tried to do the things on his own, stealing this and that from shops because nobody could see him. But when he was sleeping in the shop of quilts, he was caught red-handed. In the next day after tomorrow, we'll come to know what happened to him when he was caught.